What's up, everybody? Evan here for Grips.com, continuing with projects. Get me stacking. Today we got a question that I think a lot of the micro stakes and small stakes players will appreciate for all the information acquirers out there who are like going on forums and reading books and watching videos and doing all this stuff to get better, but then like don't really know when or how to apply the information correctly. And this video is going out to you. So we'll get straight to it. Question comes from Andrea or Andrea. I'm going to guess Andrea, but who knows? Hi Gripst. Currently playing Micro 6 Max at the moment and wondering at what stakes and against what players you should start balancing your range in. Whether it being flatting, 3-betting, and 4-betting, sometimes I wonder if it's necessary at the stakes I play or if it's just fancy play syndrome. Thanks, Andrea. And I bet a lot of you small stakes and micro stakes players out there are asking the same things. You learn so much different stuff. You're like, okay, this is cool. This looks like it can make me some money, but when do I use it? Man, I don't know. I need someone to tell me. I'm going to ask Evan at Grips because he seems to have the knowledge. So I got quite a bit to say on this topic, and I'm just going to get right into it because, yeah, why waste any time? You guys gave me the questions and you want the answers, so let's do it. And I think this is an issue that slows down a lot of people's progression through the micro and small stakes. You know, you see a cool play in a video, you learn a really cool concept that is proven to be profitable against strong opponents, but when you try to implement it at your usual low stakes game, it's a big money dumper. So you're thinking, what the hell? I'm trying to emulate this great player, yet I don't get the same results. I must be doing something wrong, but I'm doing what I saw in the video, and the guy who's doing it was doing something right. So most likely, getting to the question, you're correct that trying to balance your range at micro stakes is fancy play syndrome when it comes to anything, be it 3-betting, 4-betting, 5-betting, opening, check raising, defending versus 3-bets, and so on. In fact, even a lot of the stuff I just mentioned, you don't really need to be thinking about that much when you're playing micro stakes. For those of you who aren't familiar with what fancy play syndrome means, and if you can't guess what it means, it's using excessively elaborate moves when simple ABC poker is all that's required to win the monies. However, what I said that, balancing your range is definitely not necessary at micro stakes can't be set in stone. It's most likely true, but it's not completely certain. There may be some extremely talented players who, for whatever reason, decided they want to grind micro stakes. Maybe they're rebuilding a role, maybe they come from a place in the world where there isn't that much money, so crushing micro stakes is a very, very profitable thing for them and can afford a nice lifestyle. It's not the most likely scenario that they'd stay at micro stakes, but it's still definitely possible. And to answer your question, I must say that it's not at a particular limit that you have to worry about balancing your range. It's against particular players. And of course, certain limits contain many more of these players. I would say when you get to high stakes, so NL 600 and up, knowing how to balance your ranges is going to be pretty useful to know. However, I strongly believe that you can make it to this level without really knowing this too much in depth. I, for one, am not too awesome at balancing my ranges, and I've managed to do okay. And I wouldn't even be surprised if there are some players doing really well at high stakes who don't put much credence into keeping their ranges perfectly balanced in all spots. You know, these players that have quote-unquote really good feel. So for micro stakes, it definitely shouldn't be a concern. The main concept that applies here is that of the levels of thinking in poker. Maybe you've heard of them before, maybe this is a new concept. There are 6 basic levels of thinking in poker, which describe what a player is thinking about when they're playing the game. First one, which is level 0, this is when you get a total beginner that you're likely to find at a casino, or someone who's drunk, or someone who, for whatever reason, just likes to play every hand. Someone who doesn't really understand the rules of the game, but is still in the mix. Someone you definitely want to be playing with. Then when we get to the real levels, level 1 is when someone thinks about what they have, what's in their hand, what are they holding. Level 2 is when someone starts thinking about what the other player in the hand has. So a lot of you guys who watch this video are probably on at least level 2, if not higher. Let's get on to level 3. We start thinking about what the opponent thinks we have. So, we're one step ahead from level 2. Level 4, starting to get a little complicated now. What does my opponent think that I think he has? Okay? Level 5. Keep with me now. This is the last one we're going to cover for the intro levels, because this thing can just keep going on and on and on. That is, what does my opponent think that I think he thinks I has? Wow, that's a lot to handle. And I just want to give credit where credit is due. This concept of the levels of thinking of poker, if I am correct, was made popular and known by David Sklansky and Mason Malmuth. So shout out goes out to them. This is not an original idea from me. I am just bringing it back to light for people who aren't aware of it. So when looking at these levels, you got to ask, where does the average micro stakes player and small stakes player fit? And my guess would be that most players at micro stakes are on level 1. Your full-time micro stakes grinders who like mass table and rakeback grind or whatever, they're probably on level 2. And there are going to be a few level 0 thinkers in the mix as well. This is what makes these games so good. Now, to beat your opponents, all you have to do is go one level deeper than they're thinking. So if your opponent is only thinking about his hand, all you have to do is think about his hand as well. If he's thinking about your hand, now you have to start being deceptive and make it harder for him to figure out what you have in your hand. If, on the other hand, your opponent doesn't even know the rules to the game, then you thinking about what your opponent thinks that you think he thinks, that everyone thinks that they think that you have, isn't going to help you very much, and you're just going to be quote-unquote leveling yourself. So when it comes to micro stakes, you don't need to think too deep. You just need to play well and stay disciplined. So in terms of like when you need to start balancing your range, definitely not at micro stakes. I would say not till you get to high stakes. If you know how to balance your range at mid stakes or low stakes, you're going to be tougher to play against. So it's a good skill to have, but it's definitely not like a necessary check to be able to compete at those limits. At micro stakes, your focus should be figuring out where your opponents tend to make mistakes and attack that spot relentlessly. Whether they call down too light, fold too often, play too many hands pre-flop, bluff way too much in obvious spots, there will be a mistake, and probably many, that your opponents are making. And once you identify them, you can really start raking it in on the regular, because you can always just attack this person's weak spot, and they're probably not going to change the way they play. When it comes to balancing ranges and other advanced concepts like that you've either learned in forums or from training sites like Card Runners and Lego Poker, I'd suggest not concerning yourself with them too much, at least not yet. There are much more relevant and easy to work on skills that you should be putting your efforts towards to be a solid winner in the micro stakes games. So, I know that when you hear that the pros use certain concepts and techniques, you're going to want to use them too, because we all want to play like the pros. We want to play like the big winners. We want to do what they do so that we can have the same results that they have. But I think it's also important to note that when they first started out and when they were working their way up and winning, they probably weren't using all these techniques and moves, because those moves are not required to be successful and profitable when you're playing against non-thinking or like low-level thinking players. So Don't outthink yourself by trying to outthink your opponents who aren't thinking all that well. The old adage of learn to walk before you run is a good one to think about in this instance. Learn position, then learn ranges, then learn to hand read, then learn to find mistakes in other opponents, then learn to find ways to take advantage of those mistakes. And then when you start playing against players who are trying to identify mistakes in you and attack them in you, then and only then does it become important to know how to balance your range and start to, play balanced. So for most of you watching this video, you probably don't need to worry about it yet. It's an okay thing to keep in the back of your mind, but don't worry about it too much while you're playing. There are much more important things to focus on. And when the time comes that you really need to be balanced, you'll know, and you'll be surprised. It's probably a lot farther away than you think it is. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave me your comments as always. They seem to get bigger and bigger every video, which makes me happier and happier. And if you found the video helpful, you're enjoying these kind of videos, don't hesitate. Subscribe to the channel, show your support so that you can be among the first people to receive this video information and be ahead of your opponents who are also trying to compete with the Grips poker training stuff. And of course, if you have questions, please send them on over to evan@grips.com with the subject line, "Get me stacking," so that I can hopefully help you get stacking. And yeah, that's going to wrap it up. Remember, just don't think too hard. A lot of times ABC is going to be enough to get the job done. You just have to play good ABC. You got to play really good ABC. And the more you practice playing ABC, the better you're going to be playing at ABC. The better you will be at playing ABC, and then maybe you can add the D and the E and the F and the G. Great. So I hope you found the video insightful and informative. This has been Evan for Grips.com saying peace.